Alright everybody, we're going to do another round the world update this morning. I don't really know what's going to happen today, but I got a lot of things I want to get done. But I got some other stuff going on too, so we're going to have to kind of wait and see how all this plays out. As usual, I'm going to start here with my 29-gallon miscellaneous tank, only because it just ticks over like a machine and nothing ever really changes. As you can see, the water level has come down a bit. I am about to do a water change on this one today. I need to get in there and just do some basic maintenance, a simple filter change, and just, maybe 25-30% water change. And that's all about I do to this tank, and it always looks great. It's kind of dimly lit, so you don't get a whole lot of look at my zebra loaches on the bottom. They're also striated botias, depending on what you want to call them. I'm going to try to probably do some more video of them specifically here in the future. They're really pretty fish. They're really interesting fish. I just don't get to see them a whole lot. They're really reclusive, and whenever I try to get the camera in close or I'm sitting up near the tank, they tend to dart back into the rocks, and being so dimly lit, you don't get much of a look at these guys. So it is a pretty tank, and there's a lot going on in there. So maybe after the water change I'll get some video of this one coming up here pretty soon. My Gourami tank, we all know and love. Nothing really going on in here, except it is due for a water change itself, and I'm actually going to do a big filter change today. It's my Sun 304B canister filter there. About once a month I tear it apart and get all the gunk out and repack it full of new filter floss and all that stuff. So that will be today. The tannins will be pulled out of the water, and this will be a nice bright cheery tank all over again. I do want to point out this green furry growth all over my floating plants. It's actually all over pretty much everything in this tank, and I'm assuming it's some kind of algae. I've treated this tank for cyanobacteria on numerous occasions, and the tank always looks better after I've treated it, but it never makes a dent on that green fuzzy stuff. It almost looks like felt, or not felt, can't even think of the word I'm looking for, but it's really soft and fuzzy, and I think I want to try to work on getting that out of this tank a little more. I do have a UV sterilizer, so any of the single-celled organisms that become waterborne get pulled through that filter and killed. So little by little I'm getting on top of it. So what I'm going to do today during the water change, I think I'm going to pull all of that out and just throw it away, get rid of it. And then that brings me to my Angelfish tank, which is in a desperate need of having the floating water sprite reduced. I'll try to get a little closer look here, not tripping over anything. Got a lot of water sprite going on in there, so I can thin that out very, very much. I can actually just pull a couple of these larger pieces out and then put them right over in the Gourami tank, and then that'll thin this tank out enough that it'll still have quite a bit of floating vegetation in there. And when you actually get into looking at these very closely, like here's an example. If you see dead center of your screen, you see that little root cluster there, that's a baby. That is one that I can just separate out. There's another one right there to the left. There's one a little further back. A large root cluster like that one hanging in there, if I get in there and start really teasing that plant apart, you see all those little tiny roots hanging down? Those are all new plants that are starting. So this one big root cluster plant is actually a lot of little plants that I can pull out of there. Now, of course, it takes quite a while for them to grow in and fill in to where you see, big massive roots hanging down like that. But it gets there. It doesn't take that long. This is a very fast-growing plant. So that's kind of on the agenda today. I'm not really going to do any work on this tank. I'll just pull a handful of that stuff out and I'll put it over here into my Gourami tank while I'm doing my water change on the Gourami tank, and then that'll make that look nicer while simultaneously thinning this tank out. My T-bar tank is in need of a water change as well. Nothing major, just a water change. This has a hang on the back filter, so whenever I do a water change on this, I always change the filter pads in there as well. The lighting on this tank is absolutely awful. It is only two 3-foot fixtures, and each fixture has a 2-foot tube in it. They are standard T8s. They're not the high intensity T5s or anything like that. And if you look at my temple plant in there, it looks like a telephone pole with a few leaves left on top. And equally in this back corner, that temple plant is shedding leaves. And it's just because there's not enough light in this tank anymore. I really need to get in there and do something about this. So I have ordered a new light fixture, and that should be here today or tomorrow. And of course they only had the one, so it's a start. I'm going to have one new light fixture on top of here, and it will be the 3-foot twin tube T5 fixtures that I currently have on my 125, and I'll show you those when I get around to them in a minute. So that's all that's really going on with this tank, just due for a water change. I want to clean that glass down. I wiped it down a little bit the other day, but you can see I did a pretty rough and ready job, and I missed quite a bit of it. Just wanted it clear enough that I could see in there a little bit while I was filming it. So this one's due for some maintenance as well. This is my open top 20 long. That's still just kind of hanging in there, not really doing anything with it, just enjoying it. I'm going to try to get some more video of the plecos I have in here. I actually do have some chocolate zebra plecos in the bottom, and I've got a long-finned white-tip bristlenose in the bottom as well. I've actually got 4 or 5 plecos in there, depending on if all those zebras are still alive. I did put 4 zebras and 1 long-finned bristlenose in there. So nothing really going on with this tank either, just, you know, getting ready for water change on this one as well. It's going to be due pretty soon, so I may as well do a 10 or 20% while I'm working on my tanks today. And the brackish tank is really looking good. The only thing I really need to do with this one is work on the lighting. Of course, all this stuff costs money that I don't have. It's been a rough winter for me work-wise. I actually haven't worked in the last month, so pretty much running low on funding here. So I'm going to make do with what I've got until I can, and then eventually this tank will get much more adequate lighting on it. Right now you can see the bulb that is on the right is only a 2700K bulb. I do plan on doing a video here soon talking specifically about color temperature and what all that means. I know that gets really confusing. I've talked to people in like lighting stores that get really confused when you start talking about color temperature, because it's a really stupid measurement scale. It really is, and I'll explain all about that in another video I'm going to do here real soon about aquarium lighting. That'll be something different. This is just an update. My snail tank's just sitting there doing its thing. I don't really ever do anything with that. I don't even feed it. I just leave the light on all day and, you know, kind of let it do its thing, and the snails have their way, and I get more baby snails, and that's food for my puffer, and that's really all that tank is. It's pretty to look at though, I think. Excuse me. The big question mark, my 40 breeder. I've got it set back up. I'm actually sterilizing it at the moment. This used to be my native tank, and God knows what was in it as far as parasites, microbial growth, anything like that. It did dry out completely, but your definition of dry and my definition of dry is not necessarily biologically the definition of dry. There are some single-celled organisms, spores, things like that, that can live with literally just a few molecules of water will keep them alive, and being that we are in my basement, it is unlikely that that thing was that dry and sterile when I set it back up. So just because I'm not in any hurry, got nothing going on, nothing to put in it, I honestly don't even know what I want to put in it at this point. I went ahead and I dosed it with about a cup, or maybe 2 cups even, of hydrogen peroxide. And I'm just letting that do its thing. I'm actually treating the tank upstairs the same way. I got no fish in it, nothing to worry about. So in the meantime, it's just got hydrogen peroxide in it, and that tank is really clean. And now this one here is looks done. You know, it looks pretty much cleaned off. The glass had a little bit of green left on it that I couldn't scrape off even with the razor blade before I set it up. And so now that's all gone. Everything looks fine. I could probably do a water change and then start putting fish in this as soon as that filter's cycled in. That is one thing I do want to do with this tank. I'm going to actually cycle this one in with no fish in it, and I'm going to do it slightly differently. I shared a video from Scuba Steve the other day where he cycled a tank in using ammonia and some liquid spore treatment, so he sped his cycle along. I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way. I'm going to cycle this one in with no fish, and I'm just going to do it with using fish food as an ammonia source, and I'll make a whole video or series of videos about that coming up. So before we ever do anything with this, this is going to be a little experimental test laboratory for me to fiddle around with cycling a tank in without using fish, because I've honestly never done it this way before. So it'll be fun for me to try, and I will video my progress along the way, so look forward to those updates. And last, and of course certainly not least, is my 125. Here, let me turn this stupid light off. This I just have in the time being. Again, this tank is the one that came with those two fixtures I have on my 40 breeder T-bar tank, and I keep backing further and further away, and there's the whole tank. You finally get it into a picture when I'm on the other side of the room. So if you can imagine, that tank had that lighting in it. It actually didn't even have that much lighting in it, because I have that dome light on top adding to it. Let me turn that off real quick. That amount of lighting was what was in that 125 when I bought it. I know I've said this before, I just can't get over that that's what they called a lighted and hooded tank. I get it that it's light, but I mean, it basically serves as a night light. You couldn't hardly grow anything but algae in there with that little tiny bit of light. So what I have done is I have sort of stolen lights and moved lights from this tank and that tank, and I've got this standard hood for a 2-foot tank. It's just got a T5 bulb or a T8 bulb in it. I'm not going to flip it all the way over. Just your standard 18-inch tube, nothing special about that. These are twin tube T5 high output units, and I have one here, it's a 3-foot. I have another that's a 3-foot back here, and these two were what was on my 40 breeder. And then I have another one that I bought, and that's just up here. So I'm still in the process, and there's another one of those little 2-foot T8 bulbs. So I'm still in the process of bolstering the lighting on this tank. To me, that's still not adequate lighting. I want more than that in there. So again, it's just a matter of, you know, getting back to work when the weather breaks for me a little bit here, and we'll get moving on that, and I can get some better lighting in there. This tank is probably getting about due for its first real water change, like since I've actually been, you know, established. I know I was doing a lot of water changes while I was letting the cycle finish out. But now that it's done and it's just been up and running for a couple of weeks, it's getting tannin stained, and you know, it's probably due for a nice sizable water change. So we'll do that on video here coming up in the future as well. So that is pretty much my update on what is going on. A lot of stuff that I'd try to get done today. I also excuse me, I also want to try to shoot that video that I keep talking about in regards to tank personality, because what I'm experiencing today actually sort of coincides with what I'm talking about. I've been putting off doing this tank maintenance for days now. I've actually been putting off shooting this video for days now, and that's all part of me and my own personality and my lifestyle. And when you're thinking about setting up a tank, you need to think about who you are as a fish keeper, and how you're going to maintain those tanks, and whether you're going to be scrupulous or you're going to be somebody like me and you're going to be a little lackadaisical here and there. You're going to have up days and you're going to have down days, and there's going to be days where you just don't feel like messing with fish, and you just don't. And I've got the kind of fish and tanks that allow me that little bit of flexibility to do that. So if I ever get around to doing it, I will be shooting a video where I go into much greater detail talking about me and the way I maintain my tanks, and why I've got them set up the way I do, why I use the water that I use, and so on and so forth. And this all has to do with me and my personality, and the personality of the interaction between me and my many aquaria. And that all plays into, you know, it's a symbiotic relationship. Those fish are there because I keep them there, you know, so it's got to work with me as much as it can in order for us both to get the best out of my aquarium. So I look forward to that if I ever get around to doing it. I know I've been promising it for a long time, like I said, and that is why I always recommend everybody subscribe to my channel. That way, hit or miss, whenever I wind up doing them, you get them. If I do 3 in one day and then go a week without doing any, won't make any difference, because you'll get your little notification saying I posted some new videos. So go ahead and subscribe. Thanks for watching this one. Sorry it was a bit rambly, especially towards the end there. I usually have difficulty wrapping my videos up. So thank you for watching this one. I'll see you on the next one.